back with another Geneseo alumni, Saratoga alumni. So tonight's interviews, both Ezra and Travis Briggs, feature Saratoga athletes that went on and continued running at Geneseo, which I've mentioned a couple times as my alma mater. So we'll have a lot to talk about both on the high school and the college front, which is pretty cool. Travis also talked a little bit about how he's a teacher now out in Rush Henrietta, which is cool because he's followed a similar path to sort of my career arc in some ways, out in Western New York, getting started and things like that. So, Travis, thanks a lot for joining us tonight.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Started my long run late and had a really long nap, but I woke up in time.
Perfect. Perfect. You can be on any schedule you want.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks,
man. Cool. So let's start off with you sharing some of your high school highlights, favorite memories from your time running at Saratoga.
Yeah. I think the big ones are a lot of the ones that have been said. So we talk a lot about states my senior year and beating FM by 1 point.
Yeah.
I think there were two equally great moments from that season. The first was sectionals to qualify for that meet. We had wanted to beat Shaker for so bad. We'd seen Shaker just being so good for so long, and then we finally beat them.
Cross country and track. They had an incredibly deep and talented group of sprinters and jumpers and vaulters for like
they ran a
7:35
4x8 like 2 years beforehand or a year before.
Yeah. Shaker had an incredible run going there around 2010, 2011-ish. It's very impressive.
Yeah, so definitely beating those guys at sectionals, that was huge. Then obviously beating FM by 1 point. I still remember Bill Aris coming over and saying, "Congratulations, you beat us by 1 point," and then Mrs. Kranick just like screaming. And then punching the ticket at NXR to go out to Oregon and do that whole thing. That was pretty great.
So I'll just jump in and say, Travis, if you've watched any of the other interviews, Travis is teammates with Jay Navin and Joe Vero. And then a guy we're going to talk to a little bit later this week, Evan Quinones. Those guys rounded out a lot of these accomplishments that, they've talked about over the years, 2011, 2012 time period.
Yeah, and Tucker was a freshman then.
That's right, and Aiden, and then, of course, Aiden was on a lot of that stuff too, yeah.
Indoors, definitely the 4x1 or 4x mile at Nationals. That was sweet. And then outdoors, this one we don't talk about quite.
4x mile didn't go so good.
No, the 4x mile at New York Relays.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
When so I think Joe led off and was in fine position, but then tripped on the rail and fell back to like near last place. And then I handed off to me. I caught some guys, handed off to Gavin. He caught some guys, Gavin Gaynor, and then handed off to Jay with about like 100 meters back. And Jay just like hawked the guy. And we won a 4x mile by 0.1 of a second or something like that. I think
it's pretty crazy.
I think Jay still had like 50 meters to gain in the last 200, and he just like closed. So those are definitely my highlights from senior year. But then the other one that I always think back to is my sophomore year. We had that core group of guys that you just mentioned, and we kind of just like looked around one day. It might have been after Sam Place said that we'd never make it to NXN, but we just kind of looked around one day and said, "Hey, we have a pretty good group of guys. Like if we all buy in, we could do some pretty special things." So I always think back to those moments, especially.
Yeah, I mean that's a really important thing that you just said. That has come up in a few different interviews in some different contexts, but the coaches, for as successful as the program has been over many decades at Saratoga, when the athletes make a decision like that, when the athletes say, if we buy in, and buy in can mean a lot of things, It maybe doesn't always mean, explicitly following every piece of direction that comes at your way all the time, and living, sort of like a Spartan lifestyle. But it means, in a very general sense, this is something that we want to do together, and we're going to do almost anything we can to do that.
And
That's
we
like super powerful
did.
when what's that?
And we did pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's super powerful when the guys make the decision. I mean, some people have used the word organic. When it is an organic thing that the athletes make the decision on, and that is tremendously powerful for a group of guys to go 3-4 years together, with that level of buy-in.
Yeah.
You can get the success. I mean, there's certainly a high level of talent in that group. Um, but I also remember some people telling me that there wasn't a lot of talent in that group, when you guys were younger and I first got to Saratoga. Um, and I think you proved a lot of people wrong, which
Yeah.
is awesome.
Yeah. I don't think I don't think we were thinking that we would win states that when we were having that conversation, but
Right.
just committing to each other to put in the work for the next 3 years, 2, 3 years,
Yeah.
do whatever you want to do in college, like whatever, but like I'm gonna put in everything for you. I'm expecting you to do the same for me. Because if I'm gonna be out here busting my ass every day,
Yeah.
like I want the people around me to be doing the same. And we certainly had our ups and downs and days where we didn't want to do it, but like there was always that I don't want to let those guys down. Like for
Yeah.
me, that's always been my biggest motivator. Just like my teammates, like
Right.
I will do close to anything for my teammates, and even like in races and stuff. That was what got me through many, many, many races, is that like I'm going to push myself until I throw up just for my teammates. Like
Can
that.
you can you maybe just talk about that a little bit, and maybe, like push yourself to you throw up is maybe not something, even though it's probably certainly something that you believed, it may not be something that is going to resonate with all the guys listening. But I'm thinking, is there like a cue or a phrase or something that would kind of like trigger in your mind? Let's say you're halfway through a 5K and it's just starting to get really tough, and a couple guys from Shen or a couple guys from FM or something come up, and you look over at your teammate, and what do you think? What clicks in your mind along those lines of your responsibility to your teammates?
I'll try to make it PG, but
Okay.
um, it's kind of weird. I really enter this headspace in races, team races, like um, if something like that is happening, um, like I really put myself in the headspace of like the world, like it feels like you're dying, right? Like you're running, you're a 5K, and it feels like you're dying. It feels like the end of the world. And so like I just kind of lean into that and I go, yeah, this hurts a lot. Um, and I look over my teammate and I I'll either like say to them like let's go, and try to push them a little bit harder. But I also like assume that everybody else behind me is doing really badly. So like I'm not, while I depend on my teammates for our mutual success, I also like assume that they're not doing great, and then that means that I have to do better to like compensate for that.
Yeah.
Um, and I just hope that they're like right on me. Um, but like I know that like if I just give it everything I have, then I won't have anything to regret after the race. So
And there's that level of trust within, a group of guys who've had that level of buy-in for an extended period of time, where um it's halfway through the race and I'm starting to feel it. And like you said, you feel, like you might die sometime soon. But then if you look over your teammate and you say they probably feel a similar way, but they feel that way because they want me to be successful also. Like
yeah,
they're putting themselves through this for me, and I'm putting myself through this for them. And this is going to be over in 5, 7, 10 minutes, whatever it is, and let's go through this together.
Yeah.
And, it's always worth it at the end when you do that. It's always worth it.
Yeah. Honestly, not fighting how much it hurts helps a lot.
Yeah,
So like,
just being like, this is a challenging thing. This is a
yeah,
tough thing.
this like, um, so I was racing at Club Nationals this fall, and it was 3 loops on a muddy field that had already had 4 races on it, and there were 1,000 people in our race. So by the time we're going through the third time around, it's just miserable. It's a 10K. It's muddy up to the ankle. And I'm just like, this sucks. But I had a smile on my face, and I just kept pushing just a little bit harder, a little bit harder, a little bit harder. The other thing I think about is like tightening down. So like um, just holding my competitors, holding myself to the grindstone, and like I I honestly get like pretty angry about it. Like I can do this better than you. Like I've worked harder than you. I think back to all the times that I've sacrificed the dessert, sacrificed the fries, sacrificed the night out, whatever, for that moment. And like I just want it more than you. And
Right.
and um that's how I get through those really
Well,
tough.
that I mean, that'll definitely pump you up. That'll definitely pump you up when you kind of run through the resume in your head in terms of what you got to that point and why you feel like you deserve to beat that person. I thought this was an interview. The interview I'm posting tomorrow night, which will be Monday night, is with an alumni from 2001, Nolan Tully. He was the top runner on the 2000 state championship team, and he went on to run, I think 14:04 and 8:06 in the 3K at UPenn. So he went on to be a really great runner at Penn. But he talked about a little bit, and I don't even know if this was in the interview that got recorded or in our conversation after, because we talked for a while after. But he said there's kind of like two basic things that as a racer, you kind of need to get your head around. And I think this probably mostly applies to cross country, but not always, I guess. He said one is nobody has any excuse for not being able to do, and that's the start. Get yourself into a position where you can compete with people. You know, get yourself out and put yourself out there to start. And then the second part is kind of like what you hear Mike Smith from Northern Arizona talk about, but like being on the bus when it's leaving the station, being in the position, and usually it'll take some suffering to be in that
Mhm.
position. But then once you are there, once the race happens and you're a part of it, knowing how to press your advantage, knowing how to, even though you are feeling it and you are struggling, what do you have kind of in your heart and in your mind to press that advantage? And I think something that's given you a lot of success is you go right to your teammates, and feed off of them, and use that as the motivation to press your advantage,
Yeah.
or to create your advantage, um, and get the sort of result that you're looking for at the end, which is really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I've definitely had days where teammate came up on me and I wanted to go. Like, even that great states race we talked about. Like, I did not have a good day that day. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
I gave it all it was worth, but I like I think looking at the results, like I underperformed pretty good.
Yeah, I
So,
actually looked back at those results recently, and
yeah,
I don't remember you having a pretty bad day.
yeah,
But I also remember Gavin, Brent's last 800 was amazing.
yeah.
Evan, and
I
then
mean,
Aiden and Jay having really
Evan,
good days.
the whole race came down to Evan pretty much. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
remember
it was
that.
Evan, Gavin, and Brent, right?
Well, there's that picture of Evan coming down the finishing straight,
Yeah,
and there's 3 FM guys on his tail.
yeah,
Like the race is just right there,
that's
and
it.
he talks like I'm sure he'll bring this up, but like he was just like I knew that I had to give everything I had, or you guys would bust my ass until I died. But like as far as you were saying, like putting yourself in the situation to catch the bus, um, for me, a lot of it is like prep getting up to the race. So
Uh-huh.
like my warm up routine is the same, pretty much the same as it's been all along. I've added a couple of drills here and there, but like I still have the Cliff Bar 2 hours out. I have the steel cutouts the morning of. I have the pasta the night before. I get 10 hours of sleep 2 nights before. Like I've basically like conditioned my body to be ready for that moment in those races, like in all my preparation to get up to it. But so that's the first piece about catching the bus, um, and then when you're actually in that race, like uh, and it's time to go. I think the other thing that comes in my head, I don't know if it was you or Riley that said it, um, but like, or maybe it was from Once a Runner, but it's can't really remember. But it's nobody's gonna feel pity for you.
Uh-huh.
Like you're the only one feeling pity for yourself. Like the people on the sidelines, you can make all the grimacing on your face that you want, but
Yeah.
like, oh, it's just like a whiny kid. Like your coach isn't going to feel sorry for you. Your coach is going to be kind of probably upset. Your teammates are going to be upset. So like the only one feeling sorry for you is yourself. And the moment you accept that nobody else is going to feel sorry for you, nobody else, like you put yourself on that cross country course or you put yourself on the track, like nobody feels sorry for you. You are doing that to yourself. So like the moment you accept that, like by grimacing and doing all that, like it's not going to make you run any faster. So get past that and then just start pushing. And everybody has bad days, and that's okay. Like
Right.
it's okay to have a bad day. Um, I mean, for a while we talked about how Aiden never had a bad day. Um, but
Right.
like,
It seemed like he almost never has.
yeah,
There's a you can count him on a hand or two,
yeah. Um,
but part
but
of part of that is how he bounces back from them.
yeah,
That's
exactly. Like his affect and his disposition is just so
yeah.
bubbly
Yeah.
and bouncing off walls and hiding in closets and stuff like that. So
All right. I mean, let's switch a little bit to college, but I think a lot of the themes are going to be the same because I think a lot of the reasons why you fit in so well at Geneseo and why you continue to have success running at Geneseo are some of the reasons that we've been talking about in terms of just supporting your teammates and a culture and all that stuff that motivates you. So talk a little bit about running at Geneseo.
yeah, running at Geneseo was um, an equally great 4/5 years. Um, I competed for my first 4 years, and I put off student teaching uh,
Hmm.
until that fifth year, so I didn't have to run and student teach at the same time. Um, but yeah, running at Geneseo, um, I chose Geneseo because it was a state school. I loved the location. The team had been to nationals, guys and girls, for cross country, like something like 12 years in a row, which
Yeah.
is most out of any division and any sport in the country.
Yeah.
Um,
To have a men's and women's team in the same sport go to nationals that many years consecutively, it's the longest one running.
yeah, any division, any sport. So I knew that I was walking into a successful program, but I also like I looked through and obviously you had high regard for Woodsy and the coaching and the ability to coach, and um, I knew that I would be able to move up there. I wouldn't just go and be the first runner, um, and I wouldn't go and perpetually have recruits come in that are beating me uh,
Right.
and stay the 20th man or whatever. Um, so I knew there was a lot of potential for upward mobility, and um, I played the long game with it, of course. Like, I think a lot of people try to go to college and be the first guy right away, and sometimes they are, and that's great. But like, I knew that after high school, and especially like um, the way that Saratoga is run, I needed a little bit to take a little bit of a step back for just a little while, and then over the next 3 years or 4 years, I could continue to grow. But
Yeah, kind
yeah,
of let it come to you a little bit.
yeah, like, and that's the thing about Geneseo is that I chose a college program where the coaching was very similar to my high school program. So the biggest thing with running is just continuity.
Right.
You don't want a huge switch up with anything, culture or training wise. So I knew that going to Geneseo would be a nice continuous um, move, but it'd still be challenging, and I'd have teammates challenge me. The teammates are great. Like my junior through 5th year, I lived with like 8 of my best friends in a house, and we were
Yeah.
all running absurd amounts and like building stuff and having like a absolute blast. Um, so like having again that accountability piece, um, that was really good for making the sacrifices that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Um, honestly, like the biggest thing for me was that um, I was going to do everything I could to become the most successful runner that I could be. Um, to me, success isn't an end goal; it's a process.
Right.
So, like, if I can buy into the process and do everything in that process, then I will be successful because I wouldn't have any regrets. Um, regardless of the performances, I gave everything I had, and there's nothing to regret in that. So, um, for the most part, I didn't have any junk food or um, anything like that from June until November 23rd. And then from like December 1st all the way back until May 20th. I got pretty much 9 hours of sleep every night and focused on the recovery. And I PR'd every single season, um,
Right.
except for my last season when I was getting 4 hours of sleep for a really difficult class. But like the class that you take right before student teaching it's just absolutely brutal.
Right.
I think the first like 3 weeks of that class I had 3 all-nighters, and that was while staying on top of my work. So for like as far as like team success, we had a lot of that. We placed third at NCAA's in cross country my junior year and second my senior year.
Hmm.
Um, I was on the SUNYAC podium in track for every SUNYAC that I competed in, freshman up to senior year. Um, and there was again a lot of that team success. So um, I still was never the fastest guy at Geneseo. There were still guys way faster than me, but I was used to that from Saratoga. Like
Right.
I was a senior at Saratoga getting my ass kicked by Aiden Tooker, who was all of 3 foot nothing and 75 pounds. And like, it's pretty demoralizing. but, but like, I honestly didn't care that those guys were beating me ever because, like, their success was my success.
Yeah,
Right?
and they were in it the same way you were. It's not like, it was like your fast teammates and then everybody else. When everybody is in it together, and like you said, your success is their success and their success is your success, then it all works together really well.
Yeah. And I remember coming back from one break, and you guys were doing like a 600 workout.
Hmm.
And it was like a bunch of all out 600s or something. Maybe it ended in all out. And I think it might have been Klotz. Somebody was off the back of the pack, and they had just run like a 128 in a workout.
Yeah.
And there were a bunch of guys at like 124, 125.
Yeah.
And he's busting his ass. He's like kicking himself. I'm like, dude, if you're running 128 and you're the sixth guy on the team, that's a good thing.
Yeah. It's a good problem to have for
That's
sure.
a very good problem to have.
Yeah.
So, like buying into other people's success, and then playing off of what Jay said, success is not like days and even
Yes.
it's months and years. in cross country, I would always be like 15th at the time trial to make the team. But my junior and senior year, I was third man at NCAA's. Like if I had kicked myself over my time trial performance, um, or tried to be third man every single race up until NCAA's, I would have never done that. And um, taking that pause and realizing that, okay, if I just stay patient, stay according to the plan, get my sleep, do the little things, like I'll get there. I'll get there. And if I
Yeah,
don't, then I did everything I could anyways.
and that's a credit not only to you, having that great routine and that great process, but trusting it and having the confidence and believing in it, and believing in yourself as time went on. I mean, that is, you know, that's a great deal of confidence, that you have in something that's probably there because you've proved it to yourself over and over again that this works,
Yeah.
and that confidence doesn't just sprout up out of nowhere, but over time, like you said, you stack on those days and weeks of doing things the right way, and you become very confident in that process.
Yeah. And
Do you have
listening
anything
to
else to add for college?
um listening to your body helps. It's
Mm-hmm.
easy to get caught up in the hype.
Mm-hmm.
Um and all of that, but like if your body's telling you like, dude, you're really tired, you probably should not go out on a Saturday night or Friday night, like um I also was so I did not drink until after NCAA's my senior year when I was 21 and a half. That was my first drink. Um and like being able to listen to your body and do all the little things so that you don't have any regrets. That's the biggest thing that you can do in college. Like you can party as much as you want when you get out of college, and I'm not saying don't do all that stuff, but like in moderation. Like you only get 4 maybe 5 years to be on a team.
Yeah.
As soon as you're done with college, there's no more team. It's just
Right.
not there.
Yeah, and it's a hard thing to get used to. It really is to not be on a team. When you've been on a team, pretty much from when you're like 12 years old up to when you're basically like 22, 23 years old. It's a hard thing to get used to, especially, and this is something that's been talked about in a lot of the interviews, is how close things get. I mean, you have these great friends in college or high school that you build strong relationships with
Yeah.
because of the challenges that you endure together and the common values that you hold. But then I think in college it gets even closer because, like you said, you live together in many cases. You take a lot of classes together. So this bond is like an incredibly close one. And my routine in college was really, really similar to yours. And um, we did the same thing. I lived with the same guys, for the most part, and it's hard to, it's a hard transition to no longer be on a team,
Yeah.
um, because you're so used to that camaraderie and that group accountability and that routine that you're used to. So
Yeah.
I would agree with you to maximize the opportunities you have to with those people that you care so much about.
Yeah. And honestly, and like I was saying before, like my why, my purpose was my team. In a
Yeah.
race, training, um, like I never had an issue training over summers, and having the motivation or anything like that
Right. Right.
during college, because like I knew that like my teammates needed me to be doing what I was doing. Um, maybe they didn't need me, but like, it's nice to think about. Um, but
They
like that
needed
was
you.
my
They
why.
needed you. They needed you if you were third at NCAA's your junior
Yeah.
and senior year. Yeah, they
Yeah.
needed you.
So, like they needed me to do that. And, um, that was my why. Right.
Yeah.
So I graduate 2 years ago. Um, I lost my why. I lost my purpose. Um, and it's been really hard getting back consistently into running because it's raining outside. Nobody's depending on me to run except for me. So I actually just this week finished peak performance, and it has the whole build your own purpose thing in there, and I
Yeah.
did that. So I've got one. I've been training pretty well now for the past 6 months or so. Um, so I'm on definitely on the right track as far as that goes. But yeah, like you only get 9 years max, 10 years max to be on a team. Like even if you can't see them like over summer during college or like right now, like they're still there. This will go away.
Right.
Um, and how do you come out on the other side of it? So
So, I mean, you and I, the way we've done this conversation, it's broken out a little bit differently than some of the other ones. So we've kind of hit on a lot of great pieces of advice. A lot because I mean, you're a coach now too. So
yeah,
you're talking about this from, from some different perspectives, athlete and coach perspective, what you want your athletes to be hearing as well. So just sort of in the interest of time, do you have any other pieces of advice or things for people to kind of take with them? Um, like you said, either in this time period where you can't be with your teammates, but they're still out there and they're doing their thing and you're doing your thing, or just big picture.
yeah. So um, I think the as far as like right now, I would say like this will be over eventually. It
Hmm.
may not be for a very long time, but if I was in high school right now, yeah, I'd be upset. But it's also like this is also the dream, right? Like eat, sleep, run. Um, get out the door, just eat, sleep, run. It's like starting summer early. Um, like it's really a blessing in disguise as far as that's concerned. Like you don't get to compete. Yeah, like I'm missing coaching outdoor meets
Right.
and doing that whole thing. Like I miss it a lot. Um, but as far as training goes, like this is a blessing in disguise. You can get as much sleep as you want. You can eat as healthy as you want. You can do whatever and structure your days. However, if you're a morning person and like running in the morning, you can do it. And that whole thing. And then
That's been Dawson. Dawson's one of our captains, Dawson Tooker, and that's been his thing. He texts me all the time. I'm crushing the sleep. I'm crushing the
yeah,
food. I'm cooking all kinds of new food for myself. I'm trying new things out. It's all really healthy, and he's been very positive about his training. So it's
yeah,
it's cool. Yeah.
yeah. And then long term, um, like buy in to your teammates and yourself. So that means do the little things, um, and get like sleep is the number one thing that you can do. Like if you
Yeah.
can get 9 hours of sleep consistently, um, it really doesn't even have to be at the same time. But I remember telling Aiden that as he was going into college, and he's told me that that was like one of the biggest pieces of advice that he's ever gotten.
Yeah. It's there's a lot of gizmos and gadgets and supplements out there to help you recover, but
Sleep is
sleep
the
is
number one.
by far the most productive thing you can do to help you be better at everything.
Yeah. And then if you do all of that and you are listening to your body and you're not overtraining or you're not undertraining, really practice listening to your body. But like if you're doing that and you're listening to your body and you're doing all the little things, um, like you won't have any regrets with your performances. You won't ever look back and go, I could have done this differently. Because if you're doing the little things, you're working on your mental fortitude. And when you get into those races, the races will take care of themselves. Um, like I have very few regrets. Maybe about some of the things that I've said. I used to not be able to bite my tongue as much. But like as far as training goes, like I don't have any regrets about anything as far as training is concerned because I did all the little things. Um, I did it, and
Yeah.
it was
Maybe to simplify what Travis means by um, listening to your body, not undertraining, not overtraining, because there's a little bit of an art to that. There's a little bit of experience involved, but this is the way that I've come to kind of explain it to people. It's like we can all follow a recipe, but can you cook? this is the way I think about it. Like if you're training on your own right now, and I give you, 6 times 1200 at your 2 mile pace, with 3 minutes rest, that's a hell of a hard workout.
Yep.
And maybe on paper it looks good to me. Maybe I think, yeah, this guy can do this. But maybe you get into the workout and you're thinking, all right, well, this is getting a little bit more difficult than I think coach anticipated, but maybe I can turn these 1200s into 600s with a 100-meter jog halfway through it. Or
Yes.
maybe I can break them into 400s, with a 30-second rest and just give me that, there's that little adjustment.
Yep.
That's the difference between somebody who follows a recipe and somebody who can cook. And if
Absolutely.
you learn how to cook, you are listening to your body and you are trying to find that balance between overtraining and undertraining. And you're finding a little bit of the art that goes into understanding yourself as an athlete really, really well. And it takes a little while, but this break that we're on right now offers a really unique opportunity for that to become accelerated because you
Yeah.
don't have a coach or an older teammate over your shoulder saying, let's make this adjustment for you. You
Yeah.
make the adjustments on your own. And that's kind of a blessing in disguise, like Travis was saying.
Yeah. And I bumped into Dan Moore last week or 2 weeks ago, and he's the coach at Geneseo, for those of you that don't know.
Yeah.
And he was talking about his athletes' ability to make those modifications. And like a lot of people will just cut a workout. Just, I'm feeling bad, cut it. Like
Yeah. Yeah. You
being
don't have to
able to
bail.
make those adjustments on the fly, and taking all the things that you've heard from your coaches, and in that moment going, okay, I can still get something out of this if I take a 1 minute break. Do that. Like, it's okay. Like, you'll still be getting things out of it. And as far as like listening to your body, I think the thing that I always do is like, what is that little voice telling you in the back of your head? Like, is your little voice telling you, I'm tired? Like the demons are the loud voice, right? Like the demons are the ones that like, this sucks, this is painful, I'm tired, man, man, man. Like those are the demons, and those are different from the little voice. Like demons are different from the little voice. So I like anytime I get that little voice that's like, hey, I'm tired, like then like really listen to that.
Yeah.
And
It's a
being
good
able to
point.
distinguish between those two things takes a lot of time and listening to yourself, a lot of miles by yourself. You'll
Right.
get used to the demons versus the little voice. So
All right, Travis. I knew this was going to be a very philosophical conversation because
yeah,
we've had philosophical conversations for a long time
yeah,
over the years, and I also know that you have a lot to share because you've become a very educated, um, you know, teacher, coach, somebody that has developed a strong set of beliefs and feels confident sharing them. So I really appreciate all that you've shared with us tonight because you got some great stuff here.
yeah,
Anything else before we sign
yeah.
off, or you think you?
I got a question for you.
All right, I
Um,
like this new trend. This is the new
yeah,
trend here. Third interview
yeah,
in a row.
yeah. So my question is, me or myself and a couple of the guys and people that I know are starting to become coaches.
Yeah,
And you, as a coach, walked into a successful program,
sure.
um, but a successful program with um, with the coaches who cared a lot about that program, and were cautious to relieve any sort of control over that, because they cared a lot.
They do.
And you didn't necessarily want to take over right away. Like I don't like that was my perception, that you didn't want to take over at all because you were still getting settled in Saratoga. Um, but how do you walk into a program that um, has success? And I don't know how it was at Campo Savona, so maybe a program that doesn't have success, and balance um, the things that you know and your excitement to coach
Yeah,
with the way that the coach has been doing it and being respectful to their
Yeah.
way of doing things.
So yeah, my first 3 years of coaching and teaching was at Campbell Savona, which is a really small school right outside of Corning. And I mean, we graduated 70 kids per graduation class, so it's tiny, tiny. And when I got there, the school record for the mile was 4:53. The school record for the 800 was 2:07, and the school record for the 2 mile, I think, was about 10:45. And by the time I left, the school record for the 800 was 2 flat. The mile was 4:24, and 2 mile. I can't remember the 2 mile, but it was low tens. I don't think we had anybody break 10. But we also had, I think, what's that?
Couldn't break 2.
No, that's a trend, and that's a common theme for.
Yeah.
No, but we had I think we had 7 or 8 guys at one time in one race all break the old school mile record because I just wanted to do it to prove it, kind of thing. So I think we had like 8 guys run between like 4:35 and 4:50 all in one race, which was just a lot of fun. So anyway, we got a lot of success there at the class C/D level quickly. And that was fun because I could do kind of anything I wanted. The guy that I coached with, he had a great way with kids and he loved to win and compete. But running wasn't really his thing. He just was a guy who was an athlete, sort of. So he was like, you do the running thing, I'll help get people pumped up, and we'll just sort of work together. And it really worked out very well. And then coming back to Saratoga was a transition. So I guess to answer your question, I think is whatever role that you're given by the coaching staff is a role that you need to maximize. So for me, it was coaching the freshmen, particularly the freshman girls I was most often with. There were times, like, for instance, I coached the sprinter girls for a season. And that's opportunity for you to like really hone your craft and things like that. But the other thing that I think was really important for me to be able to do was to practice building relationships with people, with kids and adults. So over time, I had to learn how to, sort of, communicate things that I believed in, or things that I thought could help, and understand that, maybe they wouldn't be necessarily, utilized in the way that I might have done them independently, and knowing that doesn't mean they're necessarily wrong, or the people that are taking them in aren't wrong, but just that, it's a process in terms of working with people. I was very lucky, I'm very grateful to Coach Riley in the spring, because when I got to spring season, I was able to have a little bit more, or a lot more, kind of input onto things from the varsity level, which was cool. Coach Riley, who'd been coaching the boys distance for a long time in the spring, let me, really work as an equal with him for several seasons in a row before I started coaching the boys completely year round. And that was good for 2 reasons. One is I learned a lot from him, but the other thing is it was like self-affirming in a lot of cases. So if you don't have that opportunity, you continue to kind of grow and test out what you believe in the small doses that you get, which is with, the group of athletes that maybe you are working with, and being patient, or, on yourself, which, you do through your own training and things like that, and affirming it, and continuing to just grow as a professional. I mean, right now I'm not in a position in my life to fly around the country and go to clinics. I don't have really the time nor the desire to be away from my family that much. And I don't have the money to throw away on plane rides and clinics like I did when I was, more single. Well, not single, but, without children and not being married. but that kind of stuff is awesome, and the internet is at your disposal for that. So I don't know if that completely answers or satisfies your question,
Absolutely.
but it takes patience. It takes living on the high road sometimes, maybe more often than you might want to, but
Mhm.
that's usually the right way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate that very much. I appreciate the time, and hopefully we get to talk soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks
All
for
right,
having me.
you got it.